Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Unplugged. Good to have the band back together again. Tough loss on Sunday afternoon, probably similar to the week before, where it's hard for the review to be too negative in terms of the performance. I think everybody's approach and attitude was good, but it did hurt a little bit. It hurt more than the one the week before, obviously, because it was you had a really good look at the game. It felt like it almost broke in the back of it early in the last quarter. And I know, side note, not to go on a rant too much, I totally understand. It's just not a mindset that I can hold. Obviously, I had a lot of conversations with people after the game who said, perfect result, played well, showed some good signs, didn't impact our draft or ladder position. Now, I get that and I appreciate them saying it. It's just not necessarily a view that I can ever get my head around. It's a game we could have won, and it pisses me off that we didn't. Even if you're not necessarily frustrated or annoyed at the group itself, you hit the post 4 times, you waste chances in the first quarter when you're on top, you're dominant in clearances until 3/4 time, you give them probably 15 minutes of clearance control, and then they take the game away from you in that period. So I think, Nick, as I welcome you in, it was really a case of, I thought tactically we were very good. I thought commitment very good. It was just simply a case of class in the end that was the difference, and they had a bit more of it than us, and that's annoying. But, I don't find fault in the loss, even though the loss was annoying.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed that. I mean, in the middle of a game, especially when you're in the heat of the action and, it's close or you're winning, I think we all kind of have a bit of that. Yeah, I want to win this. And I remember you saying, I think it was towards the end of the third quarter, or maybe it was early in the last, now I really want to win this one. But look, we had a massive crack. That was a big effort, over there against a really strong midfield, 2-3 big guys, that really have an impact every week. And we're undermanned. Make no bones about it. We're undermanned. We didn't have a lot of experience, missing essentially the infrastructure up the middle of the ground, from full forward to full back, over the last 12 months. You and I and Phil spoke about it last week or the week before, whenever it was. In the last 12 months, we've kind of lost Dougal Howard, Josh Battle, Mateus Filippo for most of the season, Tim Membry and Max King, which is essentially our fullback, centre half back, probably our sentiment of the year or close to one of the dynamic midfielders that we were hoping was going to take the next step. And then our 2 key forwards. And so, this is certainly not a full strength St Kilda team. It's very much a developing, growing, building squad at the moment. Nevertheless, they went out there and gave it everything they had. And watching guys like Alix Tauru step up and the game that he played, watching guys like Hugo Garcia go and dominate in the middle for 2.5 or 3 quarters. Watching Mitch Owens get his bully ball back again inside forward 50. Max Hall's breakout game. These things were intriguing, impressive, just entertaining footy from end to end. And I think that we learnt a lot about our guys and their character and their commitment and their effort and their work ethic and all of these things. And would I have loved the 4 points? Would I have loved to walk away on Sunday night with a win and sing the song? Of course. I mean, there's nothing like singing the song after a win. And that's probably the greatest experience for young developing teams, is to experience those wins. In the cold light of day, does a step closer to another high draft pick help? Probably. Especially as we head into the next few years of compromised drafts and all these things. Probably it does. But I would have loved to have sung the song on Sunday night and had those guys experience that, and Alix Tauru experience the impact that he would have had in a winning team and all of those things. But outside of that, I mean, you couldn't ask for too much more. Plenty of missed opportunities. I could probably ask for some better goal kicking. But they had a massive crack, and all credit to them.
Yeah, H, I think from the 14-point lead early in the last quarter, in the next 4 minutes, there was probably 3 key 50-50s. One where Wilkie spoiled it on the wing and it could have gone either way. They just got a hand on it, went back inside 50 and kicked a goal. then probably a 50-50 free kick for contact below the knees at the next centre bounce, straight out of the middle goal. Then another one where it was like, who's going to win this ball in the middle once it sort of spilt free of the pack, they got it, kicked the goal and hit the front. So you looked at those three sort of 50-50 moments and we were probably a goal away from maybe being too far in front that just sort of turned it back against us. And that was a disappointing part about it. I think Nick's right. We don't lose anything by losing the game, but it's more what we might have gained from just grabbing a victory like that on the road against a team that had won 5 in a row, particularly with, a younger side than we're used to picking. Webster and Hill obviously weren't there and a few others. So, yeah, overall encouraging, but, I just hate losing.
Yeah, that was probably the frustrating part about the result, that if it'd been Freo ahead by 4 or 5 goals all day and we pegged back a couple of late ones and lost by 2 goals, you go, that was fantastic. That was a great effort, and we fought it out at the end and kept with them most of the day in that. But yeah, we get that lead. We kick that early goal in the last, and you think, hey, our momentum's going here. You go, that sort of result with the age of our kids and the experience that they get from traveling and holding on to a game and winning and that sort of thing, you go, that experience is probably really crucial to their development. It's something that probably just gives them a couple of steps ahead of where they will be from the result we got. And I mean, it's still, hey, all of them out there on the day were, as good as they could be. There was nothing there that you go, all right, let's pick on it here or there and that sort of stuff. They put in, they almost get the result we're not necessarily looking for, but the result that would be great for the club to go over and have an away win. But yeah, they all performed on the day, and we're seeing what's ahead. And you think about it, 20 games into all of them, all these players in the same game next year, and you sort of think, hey, we'll probably we'll take that game. We'll win that game next time. We'll have the experience to shut down the 4 goals in 10 minutes and that sort of thing and hold on. It's just that experience. It's going to take a little bit of time, and yeah, it would have been nice just to keep a hold of the lead and just give them that experience. But there's still, as we say, not a lot we can go, oh, that was no good or whatever. It was quite a good showing from us over there.
The Dockers have a very, very good
overall
midfield.
With the kids, yeah, you go.
I was just going to say that the Dockers have a very, very good midfield. I mean, we know the names that are in there: Caleb Sarong and Brayshaw and Jordan Clark, who had a phenomenal game. He was best on ground. There's a lot of good players in that midfield. And then up forward, you've got Josh Tracy and Luke Jackson. Sean Darcy goes forward. We had in our defensive 50, we had Cal Wilkie as the general, as he always is. And then we had Anthony Caminiti and Alix Tauru as our key defenders, guys that, either hadn't played before this season. Tauru in his second game. Caminiti had basically never played in defence before this season. I think he'd swung back for a couple of minutes here and there in the year prior. But like I said before, I mean, they had a real crack. They had a real crack, and the guys that stood up. We spoke about this earlier in the year. When we're playing good footy, it's those young guys that are standing up, and they've kind of, in a lot of our better performances this year, those young guys have carried the older blokes. And I thought to some extent, outside of probably Marshall, McRae and Steele, to some extent, those young blokes carried the guys again. And Liam Henry, we spoke last week, about Liam Henry and the potential that he's maybe just not a VFL player. Like, he just doesn't get himself up to play VFL. His form hasn't been anything to write home about. He hasn't been hitting the heights. He hasn't been fun to watch. It certainly hasn't been fun to watch when he's been pulling on that Sandy jumper. But, I mean, he's electrifying when he's got the ball at AFL level. And he looked like, we saw glimpses of that player again. And there were plenty of exciting things to come out of that one.
Definitely. And you mentioned all of those kids. We'll talk about that later. Selection's going to be fascinating given Hill was crook and Webster was rested for an interstate trip. As to what they do there, performances at the VFL level, Boxall was good again, and the two young ruckmen, both Dodson and Heath, showing some good signs. So what do they do there, particularly given we obviously, got double teamed in the ruck? I thought Marshall played quite well, but you look at that combination of height getting us late in the game and what we do in that space. There's a million things to talk about through the podcast as well in regards to the Sandringham alignment and a stack of other things as well. But tying a bow around that game with votes, so I found this one tricky in terms of who definitively was the best player on the ground. Before we jump into those votes, a reminder also that the Saints are back at home this week. Unplugged, proud to partner with TICKETVERSE for the 2025 AFL season. Get premium seats at Marvel Stadium's Medallion Club for St Kilda games, exclusive access to fine dining, bars and more. Visit ticketverse.com.au to explore your options. If you need tickets sorted, you can also jump on your whatever channel you listen to these podcasts on, be it Spotify or via straight from the Facebook page or the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe through all of those and give us hopefully a nice positive rating. We've just spoken over the last day or so to former St Kilda President Rod Butters as well. That interview will drop soon enough. Fascinating chat. Obviously, the insights, the stories and the drama around his tenure at the club is fascinating, and you'll certainly want to hear that one. So that's something you can stand by for. But in terms of the votes, I thought it was difficult to pinpoint, although I ended up giving our three best players. In fact, if you go through overall some of our best players, you look at, first-year player Hall, first-year player Tauru, second-year player Garcia, Nash is still young, Keeler kicked a couple of goals, it was all encouraging. But I gave one vote to Jack McRae, who I thought led the midfield group pretty well. I gave a vote to Marshall, who worked really hard. The double teaming thing in the last quarter, he's not playing on both of them. He's playing in the ruck. The fact that they can push forward is not necessarily his fault. It's just simply that there's two of them. Gave a vote to Nass. Again, huge amounts of possessions. Collingwood keep asking questions about whether Nick Dacos gets adequate protection from umpiring. Nass gets absolutely belted every time someone comes past him. So I think they probably need to look at some of that as well. 2 votes to Garcia, who I thought was best on ground at halftime and continued to, produce some sort of career best numbers there. Alix Tauru, an all-time club record spoils. He probably played the best game that a junior has played across the competition this season, yet didn't get a Rising Star nomination. But anyway, you think that's coming. And I gave Max Hall best on ground. I thought his influence, 21 possessions, a goal, set up several scores as well. He's having a fine year, but that was his best game of the season. Nick, how did you split your 10?
Pretty similar. And you're spot on about Naz and the protection that he doesn't get. And I think there was a comment on one of the social posts that we did about Naz during the week around that exact point. And I think people are starting to notice it as well, and not just St Kilda supporters. So, yeah, I think one to keep an eye on, given the trend of our footy club and our administration to take it to HQ in current form. So there's potentially some conversations to be had there in that regard, just like Fly has done with the AFL about Dacos and a range of other things, and clubs do that all the time. I'd be surprised if that didn't come up in some sort of conversation at some level, at some point. I gave one vote to Marcus Windhager, who just continues to impress in this role. I think we always knew that he had it in him to be a tagger, I guess. And at times he's played more of an offensive, play off his opponent, win the ball himself, push forward, etc. At other times, he's been more locked down. The job that he did on Caleb Sarong and in that midfield for the first 3 quarters was bloody impressive. That's an elite duo, trio, if you include the ruckman. Ruck with Brayshaw and Sarong in there is an elite combination. And they're one of the better clearance teams in the competition. Certainly top 8, top 6, I think, clearance team. We haven't been for majority of the year. And the job that Windhager did in and under, keeping body on those guys, putting pressure on, all of the little things. It just continues to go from strength to strength. I give a vote to Garcia. Young kid is up and down with his form, and he's been in and out of the team at times. But I thought he was very good. Again, that very same reason coming up against an elite midfield. I think he had 10 clearances himself, and 6 of them were at centre bounces. He was very impressive. Just putting himself on the line and going, see ball, get ball, I guess, from Hugo, and that was great. Jack McRae, like you said, just leading that midfield unit from a senior veteran presence. And same with Jack Steele, to be honest. I know he certainly didn't get the ball as much, and certainly still is not prime Jack Steele that we've seen in years past. But I think certainly from a leadership perspective, he has stepped up in the second half of this year. And I thought, again, him and McRae together, the combination of the two worked well with some of those young blokes in there and getting it out to Naz and whatever. I thought they were very good. Everyone vote to Naz. Just another great game. Not his elite best, but certainly very good and one of the best players on the ground. I gave a vote to Alix Tauru. I felt bad for not giving him more. And I guess the reason was that the majority of his impact was without the ball. It was the contest. It was, in the air with a fist rather than with 2 hands. But I mean, we've got a player. He's a player, and he's going to have an impact for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are going to be a few clubs. We've spoken all year and post draft and all those things about, geez, I wish we'd been able to get one of those elite ball winners, the big bodied midfielders, etc. I think in the next couple of years, you're going to start seeing some fans of those clubs going, geez, I wish we'd had a crack at Alix Tauru, with pick 5 or whatever. He's a ripper. He's an absolute ripper. Max Hall, I agree with you. I thought he was best on ground, equal best on ground with Rowan Marshall. They both got 2 votes, but Max Hall was very impressive. Winning the ball, his skills are great, by foot, by hand. He puts his body on the line. He's certainly tough. He's hard. He cracks in. He competes. He can hit the scoreboard, as we've seen. He's a ripper. I love watching Max Hall play. He's just a natural footballer's footballer. Reminds me of the old-fashioned footballer, the half-forward flanker, runs through the middle and can impact it at stoppage, but also hit forward and hit the scoreboard. And I love watching him play, and it's just the form that he's in. I know he's had some injury issues last season and whatnot, but it does. You kind of look at what he's doing now and what he has done pretty much all season, and you wonder why this bloke wasn't in the AFL system playing games earlier. But I think we found a bit of a diamond in the rough with Max Hall. And then Rowan Marshall, really good solid game in the rucks against 2 very, very good ruckmen. He competed hard. He worked hard. Not his best game, not his most dominant game, but did a bit of everything and did it all pretty well.
Yeah, Max Hall, a bit of the 2015, 2016 Maverick Wellers about him when he was at his best. Mav Weller is that sort of grunt midfield forward type that was good long range kick for goal as well. But H, your 10?
Yeah, similar names. It was, tough leaving a few out, tough not giving a few more to a few players. So, as Nick was saying, I gave one to Jack Steele. He's starting to feel like he's back a little bit. He's back to where we kind of had him leading the way and showing the way and that sort of thing. He's got a bit more of that grunt and a bit more of that want of the ball. It felt like he was sitting back for quite a while there at times, but now he's just thrown his head back in, and he's getting that extraction out of the middle, and he's feeling like he's getting back to where we need him, hopefully at a bit of a launch for next year. And if he can find that form that he has had previously, he'll definitely be a leader for the young kids we've got coming through, and it starts to show a little bit with the players around him. Like I gave one to Garcia as well in the middle, working with him, and that first half, as you were saying, was fantastic. It's quietened off a little bit. Obviously, they got a little bit on top of us in the second half, but still he was there. He was still doing the job that he was asked on the day, and I thought I think I called for him to come back in a few weeks ago, and I look now and go, yeah, he might have been pretty handy against Collingwood as well. So it's good to have him back out there, and hopefully he's one that holds his spot because I think he's got a lot to offer. One to also in the middle, Jack McRae, just dogged, hard work all day. He's just goes, and yeah, he would fit amongst the young guys quite well. He doesn't look or play that the age that he is. He's still got, I feel like a number of years left in him, and hopefully he can be there when we're back up again. One to Naz as well, just works hard and continues to do so. And yeah, so it's one vote to him, and hopefully it's a bit of encouragement just to keep working and keep this, I guess, group together. So yeah, into the the singles, into the twos. I go 2 to Tauru. That's confidence. It's just confidence in the guy. He's gone, yep, I'm gonna work as hard as possible and just make it as hard as it can be for their forwards to have any impact on the game. And we'd heard he was going to throw himself at anything, and that just showed that, yeah, he was like see ball, either punch ball or get near ball or crash pack or just do whatever to make it almost impossible for them to try and score. It was, just looking forward to going, he's only 18. He's going to put muscle on. He's going to do, yeah, he's going to be a scary defender to play on in time to come. And I reckon he's probably going to sneak up forward and kick a few and take a few big marks up there as well at some point. So it's a great start to what is hopefully a long and very successful career. To Maxie Hall, that was a great game. You said earlier, breakout game. It's good to steal one from under the nose of a team like Hawthorn. That's for sure. That's they had him right there, and we're like, yep, we'll take that, and he's slotted in beautifully. And to Roe Marshall, that's probably one of the harder tasks as a ruckman at the moment in the league, to go over there, play against Darcy and I've had my mind for a second.
Jackson.
And it's a very tough job to go over there and do that. And he did as much as he could, and potentially, it's probably hopefully going to be a goal of the week, potentially a goal of the year contender. But yeah, we're probably going to see something that's going to be unbelievable between now and then. But at the moment, that's right up there. So it's a number of players, a hard week to do pick the votes, but yeah, it's a good thing. As I said, good problem to have.
Ronaldo.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's right. Tauru, good Gippsland stock, obviously coming through, but that was obviously the silver lining that came out of the battle thing was the compo pick has turned into him. Incredibly exciting prospect. Jason Blake Award, I've probably given mine to this guy a number of times, but I just love watching him play, his influence on the side, and that's Liam Stocker. He's probably got to be careful the amount of times he leaves himself open to get smashed in the head, and can be a little bit self-sacrificial at times unnecessarily, but he's incredibly tough. He can be lippy when he needs to be. He flies the flag for his teammates. He's around just I heard him describe, very different player, but I heard a mate describe him as, the Aaron Hamill of this current side. And I think there's a bit of that in it in terms of his leadership through aggression and toughness and courage. He's not a forward or the same player by any means, but I certainly get that comparison. So, yeah, I love Liam Stocker. Nick, you're Jason Blake?
Yeah, I go with a more skilled Jaron Geary for Liam Stocker. He's got a better kick, but, puts his body on the line, leads from the front.
Yeah.
Love Stocker. I go into Hunter Clark. I think, we talk about our midfield group quite a bit, as every football club does. The engine room, is key. And, we often talk about Steele and McRae, and then we talk about the young blokes and Garcia and Windhager and the guys that we want to see in there, Filippo and maybe Owens one day and whatever. But Hunter Clark, I think, sometimes gets forgotten. And he's been on the list for a while. Obviously, he's had his injury issues and been bloody unlucky. I mean, there's not many players in the league that have been unluckier than Hunter Clark over the journey. We just look like a better team with him in it. And it doesn't necessarily need him getting 20 or 25 touches. It doesn't necessarily need him kicking a goal or doing incredible things with the ball. We just look better with him in the team. And it's just as simple as that. And he might only have 18 touches or 20 touches. It's maybe sometimes less. But the way that we line up, the way that we line up at centre bounces, at stoppage, the way that he's able to move through traffic and make some difficult things look simple and sometimes making some simple things look difficult. We just look like a better unit, a better midfield group, a better team with Hunter Clark in it. And yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to Hans.
H?
Yeah, I've got to jump back down the back line again. And what feels like that Tauru's coming in has maybe given him a bit more confidence and freed him up a little bit and given him an ability to actually go for like a few more spoils and that sort of thing. And like if he overcommits a little bit, he's now got a bit more backup. But yeah, Caminiti down the back line, I feel like he's grown a little bit with Tauru coming in, and he looked like a seasoned defender on the weekend at times. He was confident to go for those spoils and things. I've seen him hold back a couple of times and think, if I can't go too hard here, because if I do, I'm going to be left behind. But yeah, it just looked like he's going, no, I'm going to follow suit and try and just take all of them. So, his marking was great. His defending was great. It was a good sign that it's possibly now that's the tall three that we've got, and it gives you a bit more confidence. Looking at what's down there now and go, they could hold a couple of tall forwards and actually give him a bit of trouble. So his development has been fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's going really well. I think he's often a bit maligned, but I think his progress and Caminiti and Tauru together in defence over a long period of time looks as if that could certainly work out okay. The Shannon Knoll Award, there's always going to be a few here. I just wanted to look at our use of the sub. Now, I know Fremantle didn't use theirs at all because of Fife being a bit sore during half time, but Carroll obviously came on with, 10 minutes to go, maybe less. And I understand we had momentum towards the end of the third quarter, so it's probably difficult because the game swung a little bit and you like the way it's moving. But I think over the whole season, the times where our sub has been effective is when our hand has been forced, like a player getting injured in the first 15 minutes or that type of thing. Filippo against Melbourne going off 30 seconds in, Carroll comes on, Jones came on before half-time in a game and was pretty good. But I'm not sure Ross is necessarily a huge fan of the sub vest, and I think that reflects in the way he uses it, to be honest. I think he's had a tactically very good game and a tactically very good year, but I'm not sure we've had really any effect at all through the sub role over the course of the season. And I think sometimes we go too early, sometimes we go too late, sometimes not at all, sometimes the wrong player. I think we need a little bit of work in that space. But Nick, you're Shannon Knoll?
Well, the guy that ultimately got subbed off in Dan Butler, and he's been a favourite of this award, over the last couple of years, and sometimes, potentially because there hasn't really been anyone else, and I think we do try and give him credit where it's due, and his work ethic and his defensive pressure and all those sorts of things. But a lot of that was missing on the weekend and has been for a couple of weeks. He was on the ground for 70% of the game. He had 6 touches. Only kicked a goal, but we need more out of our senior players, and Dan Butler is a senior player. It's just, especially at the moment in the forward line where you're really Mason Wood is the veteran leader, but Dan Butler needs to be that guy too, and whether that means pushing further up of his own accord to impact it at half forward, whether it means getting more body on, the chess mark that he didn't mark was certainly not an easy one, but a little bit more composure, a little bit more thinking the contest through, and he has that, and he's able to get another shot at goal from the top of the goal square. He just needs to get back to doing the simple things, which is, it's in his DNA, right? It's the chasing, harassing. If he's not going to impact with ball in hand, then he's got to impact when we don't have the ball. And right now he's not doing either. We don't play our best footy, especially in a game where for 3 quarters, essentially, we dominated in the middle. We dominated stoppage. We lost the hitouts by 30. I think we were minus 30 hitouts, plus 20 or something at stoppage, plus 20 clearances. So, we were getting first use. We were driving forward. We had ball inside 50. It's guys like Dan Butler that need to stand up when we have that advantage and make it count. And he's just not doing it at the moment.
Absolutely, and very silly 50-metre penalty. I thought he was unlucky to have a free kick paid against him, but it was definitely a 50 after that, which cost us a goal. H, your Shannon Noel?
Yeah, a couple of moments of goal kicking on the weekend. The one right before halftime with Woody, yet another one later on that probably wasn't all that difficult either. Higo's lost his way a little bit. I feel like a couple of times where he's tried to kick the goal from just beyond his reach. And the first one he had on the weekend is probably one that he should be putting through. It's just a little bit of bad kicking, as Nick has mentioned, saying that, it's the kind of things that will cost you a game like that. The Wood one, especially, that the timing of that one was probably as bad as it can be. You kick that one, you take the momentum into halftime. But he misses it. The siren goes. You see how visibly frustrated he is by it. That hurts you. He kicks the goal, they're running off, high-fiving with the lead. So it's just the little things like that can cost you the game, and it's quite a lot. It's not always the way, but a lot of the time that can give you just that little bit of momentum, and hopefully, the time comes again for Woody. I'm sure they practice it enough, and it's a sort of kick you go, well, if he's going around the corner, you've got to be confident and you've got to put it through, because it looks a bit silly when you're not putting those through like that.
Yeah, he missed the week before. I know he kicked 3 against Collingwood, but he missed 2 in the second quarter from about 30 metres out when we had that momentum late in the term that could have got us level-ish at half-time. And he's generally pretty reliable, but just the last fortnight he's missed some crucial ones, unfortunately. We have got it's time to talk about conversation, but we'll hold that off later because I want to talk about that more big picture in terms of the VFL. We'll turn our attention to the Hawks game. A reminder also, as we said, the chat we had with Rod Butters, which will go live at some stage, so stay tuned for that one. A lot to talk about, both current and the past. Our injury list looks small, but obviously the name's significant on it. King, Howard, Filippo, Cordy. Even Cordy would be useful in terms of those defensive reinforcements. A reminder, if you do want to head along to this game, you can potentially do it on us, Unplugged, proud to partner with TICKETVERSE for the 2025 AFL season. Get premium seats at Marvel Stadium's Medallion Club for Saints games, exclusive access to fine dining, bars and more. Visit ticketverse.com.au to explore your options at tickets, all sorted. Now, obviously we're going to be underdogs against a Hawthorn side that's found their feet again in the last couple of weeks after some mini wobbles. Before we talk Sandringham, we'll talk about Sandringham form, I guess, Nick. Selection's going to be interesting. No fresh injuries. Hill and Webster, do they automatically play? Probably. That's not to say they should, but probably. And then, Boxall's doing what Garcia was doing and, auditioning well. Then it's a tall. So Dodson's kick 4. Max Heath had 18 possessions, 2 goals and 36 hitouts. So those two big guys have played well. You'd think they'd pick Heath before Dodson if they were to go down that path, but I'm curious, do they just go back and say, look, Carroll, you're out, Travalia, you have a spell, in comes Webster, in comes Hill, or do we see some more youth? Do we see Boxall and someone else?
If we know Ross Lyon, then you're right. I think those two guys come back in. Brad Hill comes back in, Jimmy Webster comes back in. I would be inclined to not bring back Brad Hill. I said last week he probably needs a spell. He's not playing his best footy. I'm by no means talking about delisting Brad Hill or cutting Brad Hill. I think he still has an important role to play, both on and off the field in our footy club. But give him a spell, get his body right, his head right, whatever it is that he needs, and use this time to develop some of the kids. I would keep Toby Travalia in there, but I think that he's probably one that comes out either for Webster or Hill. Look, the interesting one, I wanted Hugh Boxall in the team. I still do. I'm not sure there's a role for him this week. I don't know who comes out of that midfield group for him, unless it is someone like Carroll. Carroll comes out, Toby goes to the sub again, and Hugh comes in. I don't know. I don't really see it happening, just because the midfield group performed so well on the weekend. The Dodson one's a really interesting one, and the Max Heath one's a really interesting one. Little whispers that I've heard from inside the club to some extent are that Alex Dodson has passed Max Heath in terms of development, and that Dodson is what they see as the ruckman of the future, and that potentially Heath's papers are stamped or as close as can be at this point of the season. That said, I've been saying for the last 2 months that I think if we're ever going to learn anything about Max Heath, now's the time, and stick him in the goal square. Play him at full forward as a big body out of the goal square. He can lead, he can run in short stints anyway. He's quick off the mark, but he's certainly not a aerobic beast like a Rowan Marshall. But he can chop out in the ruck for 5 minutes a quarter or so and give Marshall a rest. I wouldn't mind seeing that, but it seems like that's not going to happen. And I don't think Alex Dodson's ready for AFL footy. It would be interesting to get a look at him. I'm not sure it'll happen. But yeah, it's going to be really tough because, I think the majority of the team played really well. And I don't think that there are that many candidates to come out this week, as opposed to previous weeks. So it is going to be a really interesting couple of days at the selection table. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall at some of those selection meetings because, there's clearly some strong opinions and whatnot within the footy department. So I think that would be really interesting listening. But yeah, look, I think Brad Hill will come in. I think Jimmy Webster will come in. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Webster has a role in the team. That you look at the work he's done on the small forwards most weeks, and
they've got some good ones.
That's what Hawthorn have. Yeah. They have these small forwards, and he's either going to have a job on, with a Wizard or it's there's too many smalls. I think there that he might even go up onto the wing on a Moore or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that he might be put up against. So there's probably a role there, but as you're saying with Hill, it is not an automatic position for him there now, I don't think. It's not a straightforward cut that he's in the team. Henry being in maybe pushes him back a little bit as well. And it's a case of our injury list is short now, and we've got these players that we want to be given the game times to. So there may be a hard decision made to say, look, you're going to have a little bit of time in the reserves and just, fight it out. It's a good thing to have a player like Brad Hill struggling to get back into a team, which it's what it should be. But yeah, I don't see a lot happening this week. Carroll, I mean, probably wasn't used as well as it could have been, as though he'd be an unlucky one to be dropped, and he's one we want to probably see a bit more time of too. And but yeah, the overall performance on the week last weekend, the last 2 weeks almost, you think there's not many players you can say, oh, look, sorry, we're going to drop you, because there's not many who haven't put the effort in, and unless we see some awful performances this week from a few players, that there's not going to be, hopefully, too much more changes going into towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and Hill would almost be an ideal sub in terms of his running capacity, so he could come on and just burn the ground potentially. Further to our conversation from earlier, I guess before we wrap things up, the Sandringham conversation, it also looks positive around Nass. I know Miles Bergman, we've missed that boat, but that probably enhances the other, and some of the mail from reasonable sources is again positive on that front. Not necessarily a massive contract, but certainly looks like he would recommit for a period of time. Sandringham, it's a 16-year partnership coming to a close at the end of this year. It's kind of felt like that's been coming, and it feels like the right move. It feels like the move that, if you're serious about your development, that you would make. I've always barracked for Sandringham in the old VFA, and I hope Saints fans that had a soft spot for them still do. I think it was a venture that had its moments, but probably needed to end for both parties in many respects. Sandringham for their identity, and us for our development. And I certainly, from a supporter's point of view, wish Sandringham all of the very best in the hope that they can continue to be, a viable entity in the competition, and hopefully a successful one. But I think we absolutely 100% needed to do this to take control of our own development. I think the players coming through the Sandringham system were poor. They were letting us down. Their development wasn't matching ours, and some of the resistance around what we were trying to do. And I know that's harsh, but we've got to look after our own interests in this situation, Nick. So I'm all for it. I think it's a very good move for all parties concerned, which includes the Zebras.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time, right? It was, whether it was next year or the year after or the year after, it's only a matter of time. And we've had this chat a number of times throughout the course of the season, this year and last. Look, I think you're right. I hope, I wish Sandringham all the best moving forward. I think that they were the right alignment for us, and we probably got there a few years too late. We, as we spoke about with Rod Butters, dabbled with Springvale and whatnot out there, and it should have been Sandringham all along. But for whatever reason, over the last few years, I think in particular, the interests haven't been aligned, and they don't always have to be. But when you're a professional football club and you're one of the 18 biggest sporting entities in the country, and you're for want of a better word, I know we're not a powerhouse in the AFL, but as a sporting organisation, we are one of the largest sporting organisations in the country. We have to look after our own, and it isn't our job to prop up Sandringham. The purpose of the alignment was, in essence, they have access to some talent pathways. Obviously, there's training capabilities and there's a whole range of things, but they were going to help develop our players, which ultimately hasn't worked. They were then going to get some access from us in terms of Barabin and a range of other things, which they probably have gotten. But our interests weren't aligned. It's as simple as that. The CEO at Sandringham, I don't believe, has our best interests in mind. He's a born and bred, dyed in the wool Bulldogs fan. Couldn't give two shits about St Kilda, to be brutally honest. Let him go and enjoy his Bulldogs games and whatever. Run the Sandringham Football Club. That's great. I like you said, wish Sandy all the best. But we need to look after our own. We need to have our own best interests at heart and front and center, and our ability to grow and develop our own football team, our own football department, our own football players, our own talent. All of those things has to start with us, not with anybody else. And if we're going to be a serious football club, which is the goal of our administration, which is the goal of our football club and has been for a very long time, irregardless of the fact that we haven't been a serious football club for the majority of our history. This is a serious football club move. It's a big boy move, and it's something that we were going to have to do eventually, and so we may as well have done it now. And so, it's the right move. It had to happen. Good luck to Sandy, but, this is what we need to do for our footy club, and well done for making that decision.
H, anything to add?
Oh, that's pretty much how it is. It's I think part of this is looking towards a national reserves competition anyway, in the way of an AFL reserves competition. It's probably a first step, and Sandy would be going back to the VFL system, and then it'd be nice to see that go back to a proper VFL competition again as well. And I just don't think this current system, how it is really working at all. It's too many teams, and the whole, what we have 3 buys in 7 weeks or something or other, and it's just not working how it is. So the sooner AFL teams have a reserves team again and develop their own pathways, it could, I don't know, a decade from now, we might be seeing 3 matches on the same weekend. AFL, AFLW and AFL reserves all in the same city, probably not all in the same ground, not like the old Labor Days turning up in the first thing in the morning to watch a reserves game and that sort of thing, or back even further around the 19s comp and that. But yeah, teams, all a full team travelling together, going to Perth, and the women play on the smaller grounds, which I have been doing, or like West Coast play, where Freo play, that competition. The reserves may play at the same time, and then you have the seniors play their game, and that's basically the way you look at it and go, that's what you can see coming. And the proper VFL competitions more, I'd probably like to see that more than anything, because it's a proper state league is what you need in a state. You don't need this Mickey Mouse drib drab, chuck a team on a plane and make them fend for themselves, and it just does not work. So hopefully
it's only a matter of time until there is a national reserves competition. I have it on pretty good authority that the club is working to that future. The AFL is working to that future. Again, whether it's next year or the year after or 5 years from now, there will be a national reserves competition which pit the AFL clubs, reserves teams against each other week on week. And at that point, you go back to your traditional state leagues. Honestly, even if the VFL stays as this kind of Eastern Seaboard League or whatever, and they become feeder leagues for the reserves and for the squads, essentially. And sure, there will probably be some alignments, and that's when you start talking about mid-season recruitment periods and trade periods and whatever. And then you've got the local leagues, which then become, again, feeder leagues for the state leagues. And so you get this full national pathway, I guess, from local footy all the way through to national seniors. And it's the only way to go. It's the way that it will go. It's just a matter of how long that takes to set up. But like I said, pretty good authority that that's the way the AFL is working, and that within a few years there will be a national reserves competition. And I believe that's why we've made this decision now, is that we can be set up functional for when that happens. And you look at our squad now, and you look at a number of players that, in the next 12, 24 months aren't going to be on our senior list, but could very well be valuable contributors to a startup reserves team from day one. And so, I think you look at, does this new reserves team need a Zach Jones or a Max Heath or a Zane Cordy and these guys that can, they're coming to the ends of their, Max Heath not so much, but a Jones and Cordy coming to the end of their AFL careers, from a leadership still, elite football talent, when you compare to the rest of the country, the ability to lead a reserves team from a leadership talent perspective is pretty compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even for the VFL competition, we've referenced often Box Hill when they played that grand final a few years ago and Hawthorn were in it and they had to rest Rioli and McAvoy in the last quarter. You don't blame them for that. But if you're a diehard Box Hill supporter, you've been robbed of a chance to win a flag. So I think the competition needs a separate entity rather than those clubs being feeders, and it's very much in our best interest to join in that space. There's a heck of a lot to get through. As we said, the Rod Butters chat will drop sometime soon. There's plenty to talk about around all of that as well. But back at the Saturday night fortress, if you will, against the Hawks. So bring that on. A couple of competitive performances, hopefully another one, and this time with the result. Go Saints.